Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while. Fucking diffusion just fell off. God damn it. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Sean here, and today is going to be a shorter tutorial. I got a question asked by one of my viewers, one of my very few viewers, on how exactly I do my thumbnails, specifically how I get the little stripe of color behind objects. Most of you probably already know how to do this, but you know, I figured if someone had a question, I might as well make a video on it instead of just asking or answering it in the comments or elsewhere. That way anybody else who might have the same question can get it answered as well. So without further ado, let's jump into the computer. All right, so once you're on your computer and you have Photoshop open, go ahead and do any edits that you like. I tend to do these ahead of time. That way it's a little bit easier to work around the colors, stripes and everything, and then you can actually see what kind of colored stripe will work the best with your photo based off of the colors that come out. You know, you have these nice warm tones up in here and nice really cool tones back in here. So then that will kind of help determine what color of stripe you want in the background or whatever you want to do. You can literally do any shape that you like. So without further ado, once you're done with your editing, let's go ahead and open the image. All right, now there are a few ways you can go about doing this. What I tend to do right off the bat, copy your background layer and just hide one of them. That way you have a go-to. We're not really doing any destructive editing, so you're not really ever gonna have to go back, but it is always nice to have that option. So yeah, like I was saying, there's two ways you can do this. And I'm sure there's more, actually. There's probably more than two ways. I don't know where I got the number 2 from. I'm gonna show you kind of the way I prefer, and then another way you can do it if that's how you prefer it. So first thing I do is go up to select and then select and mask. And this is going to be one of the easier ways because you can just drag across and it's going to make a really, really accurate selection to your photo without you having to do the pen tool, which is another way you can do it. So that's 3 ways. See how it just snaps right to the edge. Sometimes you'll lose that. You can just hold Alt and paint that back in. Now, because this is for thumbnails, I don't tend to make it perfect. If you were doing this as a graphic design for a poster, you're gonna wanna spend more time on this. But I just make it so the big features where the stripe are gonna be are selected well enough. I'm not gonna have anything go up here. Maybe I'll just get this just in case. But I plan on having the stripe kind of come right through here in the lower third area. So once that's done, I'll come up with the fine mesh tool, which is this, or not mesh, but the refine brush tool here. And that kind of just evens up those edges a bit more, and see how it's bringing out that little extra bit of detail. Not completely necessary, like I said, with thumbnails, but it can add a nice little touch if you were doing this as a professional gig, like a graphic design or something along those lines. You can also mess around with some of the settings on the side here. I tend to smooth it out a little bit, feather the edge just a bit so it helps with the naturally blurry edge since it's such a low depth of field. And then I add a little bit of contrast in, and that helps sharpen that edge up. So once you have something that you like, go ahead and hit OK. And I'll have a nice little selection here. Then all I do is hit Control C and then Control V, or Command C, Command V if you're on a Mac. And that separates that as its own layer right there. Once you do that, go ahead and select your background and go over to the shape tool. I like doing stripes. It just looks aesthetically pleasing to me, but you could do circles, you could do triangles, whatever your shape of choice may be. I'm gonna go ahead and do stripes like I normally do. Slam that right through the middle of the photo. Fill, make sure your fill is selected. Once you have your shape, might as well go ahead and select the color that you want. Now I'm going to do something a little bit warmer because the overall feel of the photo is a bit on the bluish green side. So I'm going to do something warm, kind of salmony, whatever you want to call that. Once you have your color that you like, I usually kind of mess around and kind of go through the different blending options here until I find one that I really like. Usually overlay or soft light works really well for me because it kind of keeps the mood I'm trying to feel or try to produce in my photos and my thumbnails. But you can really do anything. You can leave it by itself if you really wanted to. But I like it more as a subtle effect. So I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go with overlay. Look how cool that is. It's just a nice little touch to make your photo pop a little bit more as a thumbnail. And then as a graphic design, you know, you could have this as some kind of poster for a product or whatever your heart desires. Sometimes I'll even kind of drop the opacity down a little bit if it's a little too bright to me. This one actually looked pretty good at full brightness, so I'm going to leave it there. I also will tend to do a secondary smaller stripe. That's just me because I like that look. And I'll do that kind of a complementary color. So we can do like maybe like a bluish purpley thing. Let's try magenta. Go ahead and drag that underneath that layer so it is behind it like that. Then I'll move it into shot however I feel is pleasing. I usually like to throw it off kilter just because it's, again, a little more visually pleasing to me. Do overlay again. Now you see my mask wasn't quite perfect here. Gonna have to take the eraser tool here and just go ahead and clean that edge up just a little bit. Sometimes you need to do that. I'm gonna change the hardness down and the opacity down as well to get that nice kind of soft edge. And then another thing I'll do, if I'm not quite sure it's gonna look very good, go ahead and hit Z and then Alt, and that will zoom out. And I'll just zoom out until it's about thumbnail size and see if it's something that I enjoy looking at. If it's not quite there, I'll change it up and do any changes as needed. After that, I'll usually add some text within the bigger of the two stripes. And I'll do something like creating cool thumbnails. I'm not sure if I'll keep that, but it's not very creative, you know? And then go through, select whatever font you like. I like Road Rage for my personal channel here. Again, you want to pick colors that really contrast and really pop out against each other. A lot of the time you get kind of lost in the detail, so I'll actually add a little bit of a stroke in there like that, and that kind of just makes it a little more legible when it's smaller, especially while creating that edge. And that's about it. That's usually all I do for my thumbs. I like to keep them simple. I don't like to do a whole lot going on with it, but I will show you a secondary way you can do this. It's not as fast, but if you don't like the whole select and layer thing, completely understandable. But this is another way you can do it. So say you don't have your layer that we created, this layer here. Say you don't have this layer and you just have your stripe. You can do something along the lines of you can go ahead and create a layer mask. I wouldn't recommend just destructively editing, which means erasing, because once you erase it, it's permanently erased and it's impossible to get that back. So if you messed up your edge, it might be harder to get that edge looking clean. If you create a layer mask and then select that layer mask, you can go up to your brush tool or press B and make sure it's set to white and black. And then you can go ahead and paint out. So black will be erasing basically. And then if you press X, it'll switch to white and that'll paint the color back in. See how that works? Woo. So you can use this for any kind of, I guess, erasing that you might need to do. I'm gonna go ahead and switch opacity all the way up again, so that way it's a little bit quicker to erase. But yeah, you can go ahead and just paint everything out that you want. One of the benefits to this is that if you have a lot of objects in the way, it might be a little bit faster to do it this way. Like I said, I tend to just do it all in the select and mask little, I guess, plug-in or whatever you want to call that. But see how finicky this can be to try to get that edge perfect, where as the other one, it's a little more, just a little easier. But it can be done this way if you prefer to do it this way. The other bad thing about this way is that you might have some color bleed through here if you didn't quite erase everything. But yeah, you get generally the same effect. It's just slightly longer, but you might have a little more control this way. I tend to not spend too long on my thumbnails. I know a lot of people like to spend a ton of time, but I like to keep them simple, so it doesn't really take me all that long. Another benefit to just having the original way where we create this guy is that if you so choose, you can actually move this rectangle around and it will always be that edge. If you were to erase it, you'll have to redraw in that edge every time. So if you want something a little more off center, it's way easier to do it this way than with the layer mask. So there you have it. Very easy effect in Photoshop. I'm by no means a Photoshop guru. I'm intermediate at best, but hopefully this gave you some ideas for your own thumbnails, answered any questions about mine, and hopefully inspired you to do this with other photos. You could add all sorts of cool graphic design using this method. Hopefully this helped. If it did, go ahead and like and subscribe. If it didn't, go ahead and like and subscribe. I'll be doing a lot more videos upcoming months here. Should be a little less busy, so be sure to check back often if you want. Until next time, I love you. Is that too soon to say? I mean it.